Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Carrie Waltz. I share tips, tools, and techniques for the artist in you. And today's journal, or today's entry, is a little different. I videoed this tin picture. I videoed this, and yesterday when I finally got around to editing it, there was something about the painting that really annoyed me. And I thought, oh my goodness, I can't believe I didn't see that while I was painting it. And I think I really did. I just didn't think I would notice it that much. And so I just kind of passed it off, and I thought, I'll just finish what I'm doing and not worry about it. Well, I'm sorry, but I can't stand it. So I'm going to let you see the video, and then at the end, you can see how I correct it. So I'm about to correct it right now and add that to the end. So if something annoys you in the middle of this video and you go, oh, I wish she'd fix that. Oh, I wish she'd fix it. See if I fixed the right thing. And if you see something else that's wrong, go, Carrie, you almost had it, but you didn't see this. Anyway, art is so subjective. You're going to always find something wrong. But my goal is for you to look at your work, help it make you grow, find something that you like about what you're doing, and find a way that, or an area where you can show growth. So that gives you somewhere to focus on. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the painting of the tin picture and understanding a little bit of technique in blocking in some color. So have a good day.
I think one of the best things about gouache is learning how to layer it. And when you can control the water, then layering isn't such a problem. So I'm going to do a quick sketch of this picture and hopefully keep it within view of the camera. I did it a few minutes ago and realized most of the entire painting was out of view. So way to go, Carrie. I'm going to make this one a little shorter just to fit on the page better. Or maybe I don't know. We'll see. I did it a minute ago, and it turned out okay. And then I was frustrated because it wasn't in view very well. So, well, good practice. Okay, so I want this to be, it's pretty much eye level. I already made that. Because this lip is so flat. Well, should be a little wider than that. And then we have the, sorry, running into my phone, trying not to. Oh well, this is going to be my inspiration. This is not going to be the obvious, the exact, oh heck, let's do it better. If I made it that big, might as well make the handle bigger. Mine's going to be a little fatter. Instead of more straight up. This is good enough. And this is, keep in mind, this is a dent. And don't have one there. This will be a dent and a dent. That probably should be below the, I'll do that. I'll move that. So it's below the spout. It's good enough. And when you're working with gouache, you don't have to worry that much about erasing all your pencil marks because the paint will go over it if you want it to. Okay, I'm going to paint this kind of like oils, kind of heavy. So because I'm doing that, I want a fairly stiff brush because my paints are rather stiff themselves. I stirred them up a bit this morning. They've been, I don't know how many months old, probably over a year for part of it. Okay, minutes. Let's see what we can get done in 20 minutes. Okay, I like to start with a chunk of white when I'm working with a gray tone. I'm going to add some of this blue, bluish gray. I think I'm just going to lay in the first initial outside edge. and then dry brush it out, make that darker. This side's a little darker than the other side. Doesn't look like it right now, but will be. A lot bluer too. Go back and put some blue in there. I was doing this fairly quick. I'm just seeing how quickly I can lay in the feel of it. Way too dry. You ever had a song in your mind and you just can't get it out of your mind? Yeah, well, maybe I won't start singing. You don't want me to do that. Okay, so there's the basic lay-in. Now that I've got that, then I'll switch to a softer brush. This is a Kalia Angle shader, and I just like the fact that it's got straight edges, and a lot of this has a lot of strokes that are angular. There's a light line right under here, a light line up here, and right here. It just went up a little high. That's okay. There. And then it starts about in here, laying in some of the lighter tones, turning my brush in different directions, just to get some of that texture from the light reflecting. There's a line here, a light line here. I don't think I got it quite light enough. My water is also not very clean. All right, so when you're working with gouache, if you don't have color underneath, oops, see, that wasn't clean. Picked up a little yellow off the side of my interior cup that I was using. And now I've contaminated my white. So, okay, we'll just make it a little yellower, because this is just a sketch to just show some texture, not necessarily to get the exact color. I'm looking for where the lights are, trying to lay those in as they dry. If they're too light, I'll come back and add more. This is very dry brush, but it helps get to me the texture. And I can always come back and soften it if I need to. I'm working on cold press paper. It's a journal that I picked up, seeing if I wanted to possibly take this one with me to Europe when I go to Italy next year. Or, it's this year. How about that? Lord willing. And the world's not at war. I'll just tell you what's going on over there. Not in Italy, but, you know, nearer that part of the world. So I'm just looking where I see light over here and kind of dragging it in place. The lightest part is in through this part right here, so that's where I'm going to put the most of the thick paint, the brighter paint. When it gets too globby, I'll wet my brush again, and I just did. Probably didn't dry it off quite enough. Do you see how the smooth, that's really smooth texture? I don't want it that smooth, so I'm going to come in with a more muted tone of a gray blue and kind of knock that just kind of, it's going to blur out a bit, but it's going to take away that solidness that you see. Okay, getting down here, adding a little bit more. I didn't mix much paint when I did this because I wasn't sure how heavy it was going to be, and I just painted it not too long ago and realized I was off camera most of the time, so that wouldn't have been a good demo anyway. So I want to do it again and learn from my mistakes. And sometimes it is good to repeat what it is that you're working on while it's fresh on your mind. The bottom edge of these ridges, or these dents, catch the light. The top edge catches the shadow. And I'm about to drip, so I don't want that. All right, so I want to go back and establish some shadows. So I'm going to pick up a little black, a little turquoise, and mix it with that burnt sienna. Oop, back up. That might be a little too brown, but it's okay since my handle's brown. I'll just embrace that color a bit. A little darker over here. No, it needs it darker. I want it darker under here, right above here. This whole side is darker, but I'm going to come in above where I put in the white. That dents in a little too far. Can you tell I got a little less patient? All right, so I just drug that in, wet my brush, so I'm just coming back and scumbling in, oops, some of the gray, and then if it's too much, then I just go back and take some of it out. Again, wet it, drag it in, drag it in. That's a little harsh for that line, so I'm going to lift some of that up, make that a little lighter. So is that one. Now to come back and add some more white. That's too hard of a line, so I'm just going to blur it in. Okay, now I need to fix the bottom edge and the handle. I'm going to go to a smaller brush. Need to fix that too. Need a more pointy brush for that one. I got a little blurred on that, so let's straighten that out. Can't really see the top of this, but I'm going to pretend I can. Just ever so slightly. Need a little more water in my brush to move the bottom edge of that around. Okay, that's fine-tuned enough for me. I might want this edge a little harder. Ooh, I did it again. Okay, I'm looking at the handle, and it has a variety of colors on it. So it's a watery black. It's watery because I want the rusty orange from the burnt sienna to show through, and watery enough that I can drag it along and kind of direct where I want it to go. The inside is darker. There's a little bit of darkness on the outside, not much. It's really mottled in this area. Try to stay inside the handle. See how that brush split? I'm just going to use it to my advantage to get a variety of little spots. Okay, got a little outside the edge here, so I'm going to see if I can turn the tip of my brush to the very outside edge and smooth that up a little bit. Okay, I want a little brighter orange in through here, so I'm just going to wet my brush, pick up some of this. Kind of bounce along there. You don't want it exactly smooth because you want it to look rough and old. And then I'm going to pick up a little bit of white. Oops, that's too watery. Still probably too watery, but we'll see. There's actually a little bit of shine up there. Let me do that first. A little bit of shine in through here. And then I'm going to blur it out with a damp brush. It's not excessively shiny because it's old. And then we'll put a little stronger white. That's probably too strong compared to the photograph, so we're going to soften that just a little bit. Okay, then we look over here. I want a little bit, ooh, look how globby that is. A little bit more light right on the bottom edge of these indentions. Did it again. If you want to see more strokes rather than drag marks where you just add a little more water, just barely touch it, and as long as it's thin, not heavily pigmented, it'll kind of sink into what you painted there. It'll lighten it up slightly, give it a little more texture, but not change the overall value of it. When you paint with thinner paint over thicker paint will sink in. Thick paint over thick paint sits on top. So I hope that makes sense. Okay, add a little more white in through here, just a little bit. And then let's fix the bottom. Can you even see the bottom? Not very well. All right, I'm just gonna create a shadow. Oop, need a different brush. Try this angular brush and see how it does. It's a real dark shadow under here, so I'm just gonna run black under here. And what do I want to do with that? Well, let's see if I can lift it off, push it in. I did, but got my page dirty. Not too bad. I can erase that when I'm done, or just ignore it. Or we could let it sit on something. Let's do that. 20 minutes. How about that? Okay. Well, I think you'll be glad I redid it because the first one was halfway off the page, and I think this one turned out better. Also, if you want this to look kind of like a wooden table, you can give it a little streaks either that way or with the brush. So I'm not going to worry about that. A tin pitcher in gouache, showing texture. What do you think? Oh, I see one thing. I really don't like that so light right there. I'm just going to wet it. Make that a little more solid. I probably should have left it alone. Oh, that is always the choice. Do I leave it alone or do I mess with it? Oh, well, leave it alone, Carrie. Walk away. Happy painting.
Okay, now that you see me all set up here, what do you think is wrong? This line irritates the hound out of me. It should be slightly bent. It's skinnier here than it is on either end. It's closer to you, so it should be wider. So now my choice is, do I lift off what's here and then repaint, or do I just paint over this? Well, I think I'm going to try to do a little bit of both, because this is dark, and if I really want it to read lighter, I want to remove the dark. So I have a brush that's fairly stiff. So ta-da, look at that. It's gone. Isn't that nice? See, this is one of the joys of gouache. So I'm going to come back in with a little light, fill that up a bit, and I'll add a little bit more of that in a bit. So now I'm going to look, this side and this side aren't even. So what am I going to do there? We'll just lower this one a little bit. So I'm just going to wet this a little bit, drag that down. There's a little shine on it from what I can see, so maybe it won't be too much for you. I've widened that a little bit, so I'm going to widen this to make it kind of go with it, because even though you can remove the paint, it would be really hard for me to remove it. See, that I got that really wet. That shouldn't have been quite so wet. So I'm going to have to leave that alone, let it dry. So now all I need to do is reestablish where I want that line. So it's pretty dry already, which is nice. So I'm going to get a little bit of brownish gray off the palette where I painted yesterday, and I'm going to attempt to draw this line, the upper part, a little more bent. All right, I like the bend of that, so I'm going to make it darker. I started light, make it a little darker. If I have too much water in my brush, I just put it on my paper towel, let it absorb a little bit. What I'm drawing is the upper portion of that rim, that dent. The lower portion will be in the light. So the lower portion is going to be brighter. So I'm going to come in here with the lower bit and put that in. And hopefully my hand's out of your way, sorry. Like that so much better. Okay, I'm going to come back and make that a little straighter because that's more eye level and close. But I did it as though I'm higher up than the picture shows. Okay. I like that better. Now that everything's pretty dry, I'm going to come back even with some more white and do a little bit, whoops, overshot that one, didn't I? Okay, what happens when you do that? Wet your brush, dry it off, remove your boo-boo. It's not that big a deal. That's the joy of, it really is the joy of gouache, is I can mess up and I can fix my mess ups. So let's do a little bit more of that, a little more conscious of where I'm putting things. I'm not looking at my photo right now, but if I remember right, some of the brightest color on the spout was not quite where I had it. But again, you can always get your photo out. This is kind of a dry brush effect. My brush is fairly dry, and the paint is just barely damp. So I'm adding a little more brightness to create a little more bend in the container. So Let me know if you like it better, what you think, and if you're going to join me on this gouache tour. Well, okay, I'm looking through my screen and my camera, and I think that goes a little low for the shadows, so I'm going to just pick up a little bit of dark and hit this upper part to reestablish where that edge is. That might be a little dark, but yeah, that's okay. Oh, I still see a little bit of that right there. I'm going to go meet that former line. That former line is now gone. All right, I think I want tiny bit of more brightness in the rust of this handle. So I went back and got some orange. And then I'll put a tad bit more white, very dry white, on top. Oop, maybe a little too much. Again, get carried away. That's all right. I like it better. What do you think? See you next week.